Despite all the issues with the college football season in 2020, find me a team that improved as much as the Arkansas Razorbacks. And actually, it's not even indicative in that 3-7 record. We got Ty Hudson on the line from Pig Trail Network to help us break down the Hogs. And of course, Arkansas is in camp right now. Ty, how you doing?
Yo, Mark, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Hogs in camp. We're about 3 weeks away from football.
Yep.
And we're going to run everyone through the offense and the defense. And let's get started. So I'm also guessing that there's not a team in America, Ty, that had two guys total over 100 tackles in a short season. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, bumper pull, Grant Morgan. I would argue on the surface, probably one of the more talented teams in the SEC on the surface. Depth is a completely different issue, but one of the more talented teams at that position at linebacker between those two, between Bumper Morgan and Grant Morgan, or Bumper Pull and Grant Morgan.
So as you take us through the defense, I know that there were some issues last year all over the place, but hit us up with the strengths and weaknesses with 9 starters coming back.
Yeah, loaded with experience, Mark. Holy cow. I mean, you're looking at a roster with, 22, 23 seniors, 11 super seniors split up on both sides of the ball, and you like, again, on the surface, what Arkansas has to offer. So when you look at, I'll just break it down with the secondary first. When you look at what's going on, you've got to feel pretty excited if you're a Razorback fan about the secondary. And I can't say the last time I've been this hyped about the expectations from the secondary. And it starts with, without a doubt, Jalen Catalon, who just absolutely lowers the boom. I mean, that guy is a monster. He's all over the field. He hits like he's 6'4", 260. I mean, he hits with the amount of tonnage as like I don't know, like a truck, like a big diesel truck. He just lays the boom, man. You wouldn't think that looking at his size, although he's beefed up quite a bit throughout the offseason. Highly recruited player Texas wanted badly out of high school, and Arkansas managed to swoop him up a couple years back. He's a big part of what happened last year. You could see a difference when he wasn't on the field. You know, you knew something like, oh boy, we might be in for it a little bit because we don't have Catalon on the field. Then, you know what, not far behind him, kind of rotating around the safeties, you've got guys like Simeon Blair, Miles Slusher. We forget about Slusher, a true freshman who last year had a little bit of an impact. You go back, he had I think his first game he played in, as a matter of fact, I want to say it was Georgia, where he had a few tackles and a forced fumble and a fumble recovery in his first game, in his debut game as a true freshman. At the corner spots, it gets a little dicey behind Monteric Brown, who I think is an all-conference caliber type of corner. Not saying he's a first-team or even a second-team all-conference guy, but he's certainly someone who I think belongs in the conversation. We know, like I mentioned, Jalen Catalon, that's all-American. I think that's his level. Monteric Brown, probably more of an all-conference caliber guy. But again, behind him, you don't really know what they've got, because Hudson Clark, who is a lengthy 6'2.5", 6'3" corner, not known for speed, and there seems to be a little bit of a battle there between him and Ladarius Bishop, who's I think arguably one of the fastest players on the team, really athletic, a little bit smaller in frame by a couple of inches, but can play man and zone, whereas Hudson Clark is a little bit more limited to just zone coverage, and even at times he was exploited, but he was a freshman walk-on last year. So the secondary is, I would argue, going to be an area where you see the most improvement from Sam Pittman year one, or Barry Odom year one, to Barry Odom year two on defense. I like the battles that are going on there. Monteric Brown, there's no argument about, he's clearly the guy. But safeties and corners are kind of, you've got some battles going on there in the secondary. We already talked about the linebackers a little bit. Grant Morgan and Bumper Pool, definitely your again, 2 all-conference caliber guys. Morgan, all-American caliber. I could not believe the production we got out of him in 2020, playing with that wrapped up arm the entire year. We found out, we didn't know this until I think last week, we found out the bumper pool played 80% of the season, 75% of the season with broken ribs. Mark, he had 20 tackles against Mississippi State in the game that he broke his ribs in. 20 tackles, and played the rest of the year trying to battle through that injury. He even said it himself. He never felt like he was 100% at any point. Obviously, right? My God, you broke your ribs. Holy crap. I complain if I stub my toe, Mark.
I know.
I can't
I'd be
walk.
about 3% with broken ribs.
I didn't know that. That blew my mind when I heard that. I can't imagine.
Yeah, I'd be about 3% for cooking dinner.
That's right.
I'm
in bed driving my wife crazy at that point. Like, I couldn't I don't think I could. The quality of life there drops for me quite significantly, Mark. Broken ribs. He's just tough. Both these guys, Grant Morgan and Poole, are so tough, man. And so they're 100%. They're healthy. The secondary healthy. We don't have any major injuries yet. We still got to get through fall camp. We still got a couple more, at least a little more than 2 weeks left of fall camp. And then you start your install week, getting ready for Rice week 1. Moving to the defensive line, I was pretty blunt on my show yesterday. I had a live show doing this very thing, breaking down the depth chart. I'm not very excited about what's going on up there. I'm just not. If you look at the rotation, the fact that you've got you have walk-ons, not walk-ons, transfers who are already talked about as possible starters. John Ridgway, Markel Utsi, Trey Williams. These are all 3 transfers, 2 of them from Mizzou. I get it. They played under Odom. There's some, they're familiar with this system and what he wants to do. Arkansas wants to run a 4-front this year. Last year was a lot of 3 and a little bit of multiple defense, the front 7, some multiple packages there. This year, it sounds like they want to run more of a 4-2, front 6, front 7. So they want to rush 4 off the line of scrimmage. And we're talking about Ridgway, Utsi, and the other transfer whose name is slipping my mind right now, but Ridgway. We're talking about transfers that are probably going to start or they're going to be in rotation. That tells you everything you need to know about this defensive line. They're just, I don't know. I'm not real psyched about it. I don't want to be too negative on them. I have expectations, some high expectations from guys up front. Isaiah Nichols, who's gained some weight over the offseason. I'm excited a little bit about the Eric Gregory, Zach Williams battle that you have going on at the right end spot. I think their ceiling, I'm not going to say it's high, but it's definitely higher than what they were able to achieve last year. So overall, the defense is in good shape. I think they're going to be better, but now you go from a 10-game only conference schedule where you don't have an off week. This year, you're going to have some games you feel like, okay, we're going to be favored in a few of these. So maybe the pressure is going to be taken off the staff and off these players a little bit. Maybe you don't want the pressure taken off, but regardless, it's not going to be the week-to-week gauntlet, although back-to-back years, the toughest schedule in all of college football. So I don't know what kind of break they get. They got to go a while till they get their bye week. So a lot of I think there's it's going to be a gauntlet, Mark. You know that. The SEC, we talk about it all the time. The SEC is just, it's unrivaled. It's ridiculous what they got to go through. They played Georgia last year. They got them again this year. It's going to be fascinating. Texas is one of their non-conference games. So, yeah.
I'm still astounded by these defensive numbers here. And I remember this from the end of last season, but during the offseason, it slipped my mind just in regards to Morgan and Poole only playing 9 games. So in a typical year, it's 12 games. If you make a bowl game, 13 games. They're going to rack up 140 or 50 tackles in a full season at 110 and 101. And then Jalen Catalon, as you mentioned, he brings the lumber, but he just doesn't lower the boom when he gets there. He gets there a lot. 99 tackles out of a safety with 3 picks, and Hudson Clark had 3 picks as well with 47 stops. So impressive. But at the same time, you see typically with most teams more of a distribution. So obviously those guys are crucial in regards to their health, because if they would lose some semblance of those 3 or 4 guys, ouch.
What did impress me was obviously, you know, we talked about their toughness. They did have guys kind of step up a little bit. They had they had a couple of other, like I said, Slusher stepped up. You know, you had some okay moments there from guys that don't normally see the field a whole lot. But like you said, if they end up losing Catalan for any extended period of time, Bumper Pool, Grant Morgan, if you lose any of those three, all of a sudden you start to poke holes in their I don't know, their Razorback defense balloon. You start to poke holes. And that's the thing. They don't have the quality depth that I preach on my channel. They don't have it at linebacker right now. They don't. And if I'm hoping this year these guys get through the year, obviously no injuries. I mean, you want that for their well-being anyways, but for the sake of the defense, they're going to have to be as close to 100% week in and week out as they could possibly be, or they're in some big trouble. You know, they have some other guys. They have some younger guys who could step up. But right now, there's a little bit of concern there if you lose any of those guys. And again, you combine that with their front four, their defensive line. I truly, Mark, I mean, after looking at the rest of the SEC, I think it's probably one of the worst defensive lines going into the year in the SEC. They're one of the bottom three. So you lose Morgan, you lose one of the other, Poole or Morgan, you're in some trouble.
So this is a defense that was 10th or worst in all the major categories across the board: rushing defense, pass defense, total defense, and scoring defense. What do you think is reasonable? What are your optimistic expectations for improvement?
Well, I do think, you know, their secondary, those numbers got a little bloated last year. They shut down Mississippi State and Ole Miss, who could throw the ball as good as anybody a year ago. Well, Mississippi State, I mean, we saw what happened as the year went on with them, but I mean, they shut down Coral at Ole Miss. I mean, they picked that guy dry. I think that the ceiling is pretty high with the secondary. Bumper Pool, who is rated one of the highest, Morgan. I think it was Grant Morgan, according to Pro Football Focus. They put out a analytic yesterday about the pass coverage from linebackers. He's like top 4 in the country. You know, so you're going to have a lot of assistance against the pass. I think to me, that's the expectation that their secondary is going to be far better than it was last year. And last year was a pretty decent step in the right direction. Now it's like, how far ahead are we compared to 2019? Maybe, like, how much better are they than, you know, Chad Morris's last year? We have to start seeing those significant steps. I think that's where the strength's going to be in the defense. The ground game, I don't know, Mark. Hog fans are going to have to hold their breath against the run. I don't know if Poole and Morgan, if they're not there making the stops, making the plays, if they're ever caught out of position, which is rare, but if they are, who knows what an opposing ground attack could do to this Razorback run defense. But, you know, they started off the year last year really strong in that department. A lot of that had to do with Jonathan Marshall. He's not on this team anymore, right? My expectation, the height is pretty high for the secondary for their pass coverage, but I'm probably most concerned about what they're going to do against the run.